Hello everyone, welcome to the Xcom 2 review. And I think this review might be different from my usual reviews. In fact, I'm pretty sure it's going to be different because I want to do a few things differently this time around. I'd like to switch up my format a little bit. You see, usually I have the features as the main part of the review. You know, the story, the music, graphics, and then I have a quick flash there where I talk about the pros and cons of the game, and then I end the review with my final thoughts. However, for this game in particular, XCOM is really important to me, so I'm going to switch up the review, and if I like how it goes this time, maybe I'll just start doing all of them this way. But I'd like to instead summarize and breeze through the story and gameplay sections and then make the entirety of the video about the likes and dislikes, the good and the bad of the game. I want to go into a lot of detail about every point that I make in the good and the bad. Now there's two reasons as to why I'm doing this. The first is I like to switch up my style, just give a little more detail because my videos come late. I mean, I don't want to release a review that is exactly the same type as someone who releases theirs 2 days before the game releases, because then there is no value you get. It's pretty much the same thing as someone, and people could have already gotten these thoughts a long time ago from bigger YouTubers. So I'm thinking maybe I'll instead focus on details. That means of course that my review is going to have spoiler talk. I'll try to avoid it wherever possible, like with the story and such, but especially with gameplay I'm going to discuss all of it, like everything, unless there's something maybe I forget to talk about. My other reason for doing this is I just want to be, just try something different. Maybe put some clips in here if I can find them, movie clips that I could use for jokes. My voice and personality is not particularly funnier, but I think I can find a way to make things visually more interesting for you guys. I think let's get started with the actual review. Okay, so one of the first changes that I'm going to be making is that I'm going to give you the verdict right now. XCOM 2 is a great game, okay? As it currently stands, it has a guaranteed spot in my top 10 at the end of the year, unless 10 better games come out sometime during this year. You should definitely get it, definitely play XCOM 2, unless you just really are not into strategy games. If you're not into that kind of thing, or this futuristic setting kind of bores you, and also if you're not into challenge, if you don't like games that can really mess with your mind, then XCOM 2 probably won't be for you. Okay, so let's start the review proper, and I'm going to start by talking about XCOM 2's story. What's this about?
Commander, we're making progress piecing this thing back together, but it hasn't been pretty.
Our soldiers completely disabled this unit in the field. What we're hearing is merely a byproduct of electrical impulses. I assure you, it is well past the point of feeling hate.
I'll take your word for it, Doctor.
This game continues the events of the first game, where humanity has been taken over by the aliens. Well, they're calling themselves the Advent, and they are now pretty much running a dystopian kind of setting in the wild. If you've seen dystopian settings before in Hunger Games or whatever, you know how this works. They pretend to be giving the people this kind of peace and hope, and the majority of humanity is on board with everything that's happening.
Advent assures us this breakthrough will be available to all citizens immediately. We go live to the speaker for more.
Fellow citizens, for 20 years we have put our trust in Advent, in the elders, because we believed a better future is possible for all.
Except for a small group of people, okay? And of course the leadership of dystopian kind of setting, they are using the people and they're manipulating them for one reason or another, and it's this small ragtag group of guys that do not believe in this government and are fighting hard, keeping up the fight underground to stop them. So this is you, this is XCOM. You're no longer a big government-funded organization like you were in the first game. This time you're coming from the underground. You are the renegades, you are the smaller unit, and you're trying to take on the governments spread across the world. You're trying to establish resistance movements across the world, mobilize the people so that you can fight against the Advent Corporation, defeat them, and win back the Earth. That's the setting for the game. Gameplay, of course, is still typical XCOM gameplay. If you've never seen it before, it involves two main styles of play. The first of these is a kind of map building setting. In this area, you manage your base, you take care of your resources, you recruit soldiers, you equip your men, you set research options, you try and establish communication with various units across the world, and basically you plan out your attacks. And while you're doing this, eventually you will always be hit by certain events. These events will trigger the second mode, which is the on-ground tactical play mode. In this mode, you must pick a unit of soldiers that goes onto the ground. You then have to plan their movements and go into a turn-based battle against the alien enemies and try to defeat them. That's all I'm going to say about gameplay and story for now. That's the summary. Moving on to likes and dislikes. Let's start with the good. I have a number of points written down here. As you can tell from how I'm speaking, I'm not doing this with a script. I'm just kind of trying to remember everything that comes off the top of my head. So the likes. First off, the presentation. I love the presentation in this game, and I'm not just talking about the graphics or anything. I'm talking about the entire presentation, from the way the soldiers look, to the way they act, to the way the music plays, to the way the whole thing, especially the animations that were given to the characters. I'm talking about the way that they move in game, the way that the enemies act, the way that the whole thing is run. It has an extremely cinematic feeling to it. It all has this extremely epic, that's actually the right word for it. It has this extremely epic feel to it. XCOM 1 was good, but it definitely did not have this kind of epic feeling going for it. So I really liked that, and many times I really felt like I was doing something really cool just because of how the presentation was handled. So that's definitely my first like. In general, the presentation was really good. I want to talk about the better and more focused story in this game.
We've lost power! We're going down! Fast!
Impossible! There's no damage to the engines. Unless using an electromagnetic pulse. If I can just bypass all this alien circuitry... Hold on. It's not accepting the transfer. Interface ready. The system is overriding my command.
Shen!
Right.
This time round, the story is a lot more focused. XCOM Enemy Unknown had a problem whereby even until the end of the game, most of us were not sure what the hell the aliens were trying to accomplish. They went more for the gameplay and kind of threw the story out the window. So this time round, the story is better. It's a lot more focused. Also, the game they actually tried to establish connections to the past game. For example, our new engineer is the daughter of the old engineer from XCOM Enemy Unknown, and they actually let you know what happened to him in between the games. Our old scientist researcher is gone. They also talk about her throughout this game, so you'll get to hear about her and how she used to handle the things that she used to do. Even the new researcher that's put there this time, he also has his own backstory to him that he keeps talking about as you're playing.
Dr. Shen's constant vigil over my activities is starting to wear thin. I consider myself a patient man, but eventually she's going to have to trust me if we're going to achieve our goals.
Commander?
And that kind of stuff was really nice. It kind of it made you feel like there was a lot going on outside into the world, things that you couldn't see. Actually, there is this specific thing that they keep talking about with Advent buggers. The buggers that are being given out by the Advent Corporation. Everyone seems to like those Advent buggers, and it's like pissing Centra off. Centra is the main guy, by the way. He's like the commanding guy. He returns from XCOM Enemy Unknown as well, and I just like this kind of dialogue. It is the kind of thing that just made you feel like there was a world out there happening and events going on that you cannot see, obviously, because of the limitations of the game. You're only limited to seeing your Avenger ship, your headquarters, and you cannot see the rest of the world. But this kind of dialogue really helped to flesh out that kind of world. The third thing I want to talk about is, and to me, as I've always mentioned many times, it's always my most important part in any game. it's the music. Holy shit, the music in XCOM 2 is amazing. I don't even know how to say it. There were many times when I was outfitting my soldiers just before the mission launched, and I would actually take about 6 minutes on that screen just because I wanted the music to keep looping. So the music is really good, and there are a variety of songs. There's a different soundtrack for when you win missions.
All contacts. The AO is clear.
There's a different soundtrack from when you fail missions.
The current area of operation is secure.
There's a soundtrack for when you're heading to the missions. There's battle soundtracks. There's a silent soundtrack. There's so many different sounds, and they're all amazing. So good job on that. In terms of sound, okay, I'll talk about voices more when I get to the soldiers. In case you haven't noticed, I'm not using a script for this. I'm kind of just reading points and trying to explain them. I don't know if it's really messy, but whatever. I'm sticking with it. Soldier weapon customization. They took the soldier customization to the next level in this game. The soldier customization has always been the strongest point in XCOM. The soldiers, the bond that you form with your soldiers, the fact that you can create them yourself, the fact that you can name them. It's always been the kind of the binding factor in XCOM, the thing that makes you want to play this game. The fact that you get to name these guys, create your own soldiers, and then they go into battle, and sometimes they die and they don't make it, and then you get heartbroken when you can't replace these guys. Or you could just load the previous save, whatever. But personally, I like the feeling of accepting my mistakes and losing some of these guys. And sometimes it just kills you when you lose someone that you had begun to really get invested in. In fact, as a matter of fact, in order to alleviate some of the heartbreak, I do not upgrade a soldier until they've gotten to sergeant status. When they've gotten to the sergeant point, then I can start giving them upgrades, because at least I know they have a lot less chance of getting killed and just messing with my mind. But okay, I actually lost the point I was trying to make with soldier and weapon customization. There is a lot more of that in this game. This time round, you can upgrade different armor pieces. You can upgrade the person's arms, you can upgrade their legs, you can upgrade their torso. You have head pieces, you have something different for the eyes, you have something different for the lower head, you have something different for the helmet. There is just so much customization in this area, especially, and they just seem to go all out with this time. And the armor, in addition to looking different, can even have different patterns to it, so you can take that further. And it's not just the armor that benefits from this, or the soldiers themselves. There is also the guns, the weapons. Not only can they be upgraded with different special slots that make them better, they can also have various armor. They can have different paint, they can have different designs to them, and they can receive the same armor patterns, they can receive the same designs, the same patterns that the armor has. So that's very, very cool. It definitely made you feel like you were attached to these soldiers, and it just made the whole thing your own personal crew of badass guys just going out there and taking the fight to the Advent Corporation.